These are the fattest players in NBA history, starting with Glen Davis, whose career is remembered more for crying than for anything. Now, Big Baby Davis had a moderately successful career in the NBA, but what's really made the splash in the news is the fact that this guy is about to serve out a prison sentence. After a career in which he averaged a mediocre 8 a game, Big Baby's post-playing days have only seemed to be drama, from drug possession charges to now, of course, the health insurance fraud scheme that he'd become infamous for. While Big Baby has certainly gone down as the face of the scheme despite not being a mastermind, his response to the allegations certainly have been interesting.
It's your boy Big Baby, man. Don't believe all that shit on the internet. I will have my day in court. They just mad because a black man got money, man. Just trying to keep a black man down, man. Hey, man, shout out Rollo, man. All those people, man, getting money, man. My shit legal, man. A lot of jump shots. A whole lot of jump shots. Popeye chicken.
Now, I don't really know what the hell his social media ramblings were trying to prove, but after doing a podcast trying to clear his name while also clearly baked out of his mind, Big Baby tried to clear the allegations.
Take that shit to motherfucking trial.
Shout out to
Take that
Young
shit
Thug.
to motherfucking trial. That's all it. That's
Okay.
all I got to say. Ain't no talking, ain't no cooperating. You know, this situation is...
Now, this certainly didn't go well for Big Baby, as in May of this year, he would be found guilty for his involvement in the scheme. Despite making over $34 million in his career, these guys were really fighting over crumbs, as Terrence Williams, the ringleader, tied in 18 other NBA players, including Davis, to file fake medical and dental claims that never took place, defrauding the NBA out of $4 million in total. Now, Big Baby said he never received any money, which I really couldn't disprove or prove, but the judge certainly wasn't buying this for a second, slapping a 40-month prison sentence on his wrist. But even after not receiving the news he wanted, Big Baby had to take to IG Live to keep us updated on his situation.
I got a cold imagination, though. You know, I do that actor shit. I got a cold imagination. I'm gonna have to choke the chicken in the bathroom. That's crazy. I'm gonna be swole, though. I swear to God, I'm about to get in so much shape. Oh, God. That's the only way you can stop me from eating hamburgers is put me in jail. That's what God said. I'm gonna stop you eating hamburgers. I'm gonna put you in jail. You don't want to stop eating hamburgers and Cheetos? You're going to jail. So now, I'm gonna come to Rock.
Maybe you should have taken notes from big country Bryant Reeves, who has certainly gone completely off the grid since the end of his NBA career. Now, Bryant Reeves is a very misunderstood star, mostly by the younger generation, as due to his appearance he often gets tied into the group of being one of the biggest busts in NBA history, and at times even among the worst players in NBA history. In reality, this was nowhere near the case. And what you may be surprised to hear about is that this guy's a hell of a lot better than you may realize. Big Country was drafted 6th overall to the Grizzlies before their first season as a franchise, but sadly he wasn't sharing the floor with Memphis greats like Mike Conley or Marc Gasol, because Big Country had to dust off his passport and take his talents to the Vancouver Grizzlies before their eventual move to Memphis. The Vancouver Grizzlies are, of course, probably the worst team in NBA history, maybe up there with the Bobcats. Every year they had was disastrous, but starting their first season with Big Country as their centerpiece was their hope for a bright start. Big Country had the benefit of being a large and in charge, big body center. This guy was country fed, for sure, which certainly slowed him down on the court and put unnecessary pressure on his lower body, but this was also the time when the Diesel was the best player in the world doing the exact same thing. So teams were pretty excited about this kid regardless. Country was certainly overweight, but this guy could utilize it well. He was a 7-foot, 300-pounder and had the best touch in the business. I mean, he could use his frame to get positioning on you, and if he could get a decent look at the basket inside of about 18 feet, there's a damn good chance that was going in. Reeves was a good interior scorer right out of the gate, putting up 13 and 8 in his rookie year, and had signs that he could develop into a future all-star level player. And as they finished an absolutely awful 15 and 67, they would land another top pick in which they would select Sharif Abdul-Rahim. Now, Sharif was the best player in Vancouver history, but at this time, this was a two-man show that they were desperately trying to build around. Reeves would go on to put up a pretty good show, showing really solid improvements over the next 2 seasons, upping his scoring average to 16 and 8. While the Grizzlies were struggling terribly with a roster carried by 2 young guys, they had to lock these dudes up, and overpaid for Big Country, giving him a fat $61 million contract, which is a major overpayment for a notoriously bad defender whose ceiling wasn't very far from where he was already. Now, Big Country was certainly pretty decent. I mean, at 16 and 8, although it didn't seem like he was going to get too much better, wasn't too far from being an all-star level player in the league. However, after his 3rd season marked his quick downfall of his career. July 1st, 1998 was the start of the 3rd NBA lockout in league history, and during this time, Big Country was certainly stuffing his face. Bryant would return to the Grizzlies after the lockout 40 pounds overweight. Now, Bryant was always a country-fed kid, but he came back pretty damn fat, and although I can't exactly prove that this is the cause, Bryant would suffer nagging injuries from this point out. This really altered his on-court play as the quality and quantity severely dropped. Playing just 28 minutes in 25 games, Country would put up an inefficient 10.8 a night. Reeves would struggle to shed the weight as the injuries plagued him, and after just 6 short seasons in the NBA, Big Country was out of the league due to his chronic back pain. As Reeves would leave a fat contract he never lived up to and an ungraceful ending looking like a shell of his former self, Reeves retired only as good as his last game. People would go on to call him a bust, would say his contract was the reason that Vancouver lost their team, and would even go on to call him one of the worst players in league history. Now, none of this is true, of course. Country was one of the better post players of his time that really turned out pretty much as advertised entering the NBA before his body betrayed him. For a couple years, he was certainly one of the better starting big guys in the league. His game, while not effective nowadays, was incredibly effective in the late 90s and early 2000s. Hell, he even gave Shaquille O'Neal problems in his first few years in the league. And although his contract was bad, it wasn't his fault that the team that was burning through money had to move when the 20 fans in the arena were only there to see him. In fitting fashion, Big Country would take a $60 million contract and build a 15,000 square foot house in rural Oklahoma on a 300-acre cattle ranch, never to be heard from again. For all the talk about the Sixers and Bucks stumbling out of the gate this season, no team is a bigger disaster than the New Orleans Pelicans. A squad with legitimate 50-win expectations now finds itself at rock bottom. According to Basketball Reference, they have a whopping 0% chance of even making the playoff play-in tournament. The reason? Well, a lot of this certainly falls on the shoulders of Zion Williamson. Zion's situation is particularly dire. His latest injury is reportedly worse than initially thought, and ESPN has stated openly, speculating whether the Pelicans should cut Zion entirely. His contract makes this feasible as the team would waive him with a little financial consequence thanks to its unique clauses. Signed in 2022, Zion's 5-year max extension includes protections that require regular weigh-ins, ensuring the combined total of his weight and body fat percentage don't exceed 295. Failure to meet these conditions results in portions of his contract becoming non-guaranteed. Additionally, if he misses too many games or re-injures his foot, significant parts of his salary could disappear entirely. This isn't the first time that Zion's weight has caused severe issues in his career. Really, since the start, the question was never about Zion's ability to play basketball, but whether a player soaring above the rim like this could stay on the floor despite frequently struggling to meet NBA fitness needs. And now 5 years in, it's clear that we've gotten our answer. This year, Zion's physical condition has again been under scrutiny. He signed his deal with the expectation of maintaining peak fitness, but a recent viral video has reignited concerns about his weight. While nobody should shame him, it's fair to point out that he's earning $40 million per year to stay in shape and perform. Unfortunately, he has missed almost 50% of his games since entering the league, leaving fans and the Pelicans frustrated. Zion's weight has certainly been a contributing factor to his instability in the NBA. After falling from up near the high 20s in scoring, Zion's fallen to around 22 points per game, while his efficiency in the basket has taken a severe hit as well. Zion putting unnecessary weight on his lower body has clearly crippled his success in the league up to this point, as despite not being the fattest guy ever or anything like that, putting unnecessary weight on knees that are already being abused by his high-flying play has left some to call him the Greg Oden of our time. I mean, watching him play, it's clear that he can't move like he used to, now playing more traditional bully ball than we've seen in the past. The Zion Williamson story is certainly a sad one up to this point that we'll have to wait to see unravel. Now, Eddie Curry, funny enough, has quite a few similarities to Big Country. Also often mocked for his weight and for his status as an NBA bust, Curry catches even more ridicule than Reeves ever did in his career. Eddie Curry, born in Harvey, Illinois, rose to prominence as a high school basketball phenom at Thornwood High School, averaging 22 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 blocks per game. His stellar play earned him Illinois Mr. Basketball honors, a spot in the McDonald's All-American game, and the game's MVP award, solidifying his reputation as one of the top prospects in the nation. Eddie would declare for the 2001 NBA draft straight out of high school, where the Chicago Bulls selected Curry with the 4th overall pick. Now, Eddie Curry was highly regarded as one of the best prospects in the frontcourt, as being selected 4th overall out of high school can tell you. But his expectations were even crazier than you could imagine. Similar to Reeves as a 300-pound center, he had the benefit of being compared to the Diesel. He was dominating the league. NBA Draft.net even went as far to say, Eddie has more strength and polish than Shaq at the same age. The only thing that can stop Eddie Curry from becoming the next dominant force in the NBA is Eddie Curry. Has off-the-charts strength, athleticism is very good for a player his size, has learned to score despite constant double and triple teams, has a nifty turnaround, can even knock down the occasional 18-footer, unlike Shaq and Wilt, does not have the Achilles free throw curse. Now, he certainly had some potential, but let's not ignore the weakness. Weight has become a concern. Consistency has had his ups and downs over the course of his senior season. In a much-hyped matchup against Tyson Chandler, Curry left the 30-plus scouts who came to see the matchup scratching their heads. Must continue to want it and develop to ever become the player that Shaq is. Eddie was a pretty fat guy visibly, and due to him also being noted to not like the game of basketball, this certainly should have set off some red flags, but nonetheless, the Bulls felt comfortable giving him a shot. Joining his hometown team was a nice start, but the Bulls were not really the best fit in the world, acquiring Tyson Chandler. The Bulls really weren't able to play the two together, as Chandler was a defensive presence with no offensive game, and Eddie Curry could get buckets inside and play no defense. I mean, it was kinda just a clunky mess. Over his first 3 seasons, he improved steadily, showcasing his scoring ability and efficient post play. He gradually would increase his scoring output as his minutes allowed from 7 to 10.5, then to 15 points per game, while Chandler would battle injuries and would kind of fall out of the rotation as he was looked at as the bust of the pair, even though things eventually figured themselves out for him. I mean, Eddie was pretty decent in his first 3 years. He was an efficient interior scorer, even leading the league in field goal percentage in his second year, and by his 4th year, Eddie Curry was climbing the ladder, putting up 16 a game on 54% from the field while playing in a contract year before things would get very complicated. During a game against the Memphis Grizzlies on March 30th, 2005, Curry complained of chest pain and lightheadedness, symptoms linked to heart defects. Out of caution, the Bulls benched Curry for the remainder of the season and playoffs, fearing the worst. I mean, heart conditions are nothing to play around with. The Bulls requested that Curry take a DNA test to assess his risks, yet Curry refused, citing privacy concerns, which led to the Bulls trading him to the New York Knicks in a deal that included multiple draft picks. Curry's time with the Knicks was marked by inconsistency and controversy. He clashed with head coaches Scott Skiles and Larry Brown due to frequent tardiness to training camps, poor conditioning, and defensive lapses. Despite these challenges, Curry had the best statistical season of his career in 2006, averaging 19.5 points and 7 rebounds per game while playing 81 games. However, his inability to consistently maintain his fitness began to hinder his performance. I mean, Eddie Curry at his best was above average in the NBA, there's no doubt about that, and kind of for similar reasons to Big Country. The two were both large as shit in an era that valued bruisers and had some interior scoring skills to take advantage of their size, but similar to Reeves, he had some similar shortcomings. Curry was pretty on par with Big Country's terrible defensive game. I mean, for like a starting level talent, this was basically as bad as it gets. He never seemed overly engaged, of course his feet were slow, and due to his weight was never going to be a good pick and roll defender. Defensively, he was just bad. Even on the glass, Curry didn't seem overly motivated to really bust his ass for any rebounds. Averaging 7 at his best and 5 for his career, he didn't even try on the glass. When asked by a reporter in 2003 what Curry needed to do to become a better rebounder, Coach Scott Skiles simply replied, "Jump." It's safe to say that his effort was a pet peeve of coaching staff, and this would only get worse. When Mike D'Antoni took over as head coach in 2008, This guy literally ran Eddie Curry out of town. D'Antoni's infamous for his 7 seconds or less Suns team and the small ball Houston Rockets running mobile bigs like PJ Tucker, Sean Marion, and Amari Stoudemire. I mean, the fit for this team is honestly comically bad. Despite being at his best, the Knicks clearly didn't see a future with Curry's game ever translating to wins, and hired the coach who would flip their system on its head while dumping Curry from it in the meantime. His role diminished significantly, with injuries compounded by his issues. By 2008-2009, Curry played in just 3 games, averaging only 1 point. His once promising career began to spiral. Off the courts, Curry faced a series of personal and legal troubles. In 2009, a former male chauffeur accused him of sexual harassment, claiming he exposed himself and flashed a gun to the man. These charges were dropped, but was just the start of what was an incredibly disheartening downfall of the guy. The same year, Curry endured an unthinkable tragedy when his former girlfriend and their 10-month-old daughter were murdered by Curry's lawyer, who had been romantically involved with her behind the scenes. The lawyer was convicted and sentenced to life in prison, but the incident left Curry emotionally distressed as expected. Curry would seem to lose interest in a lot of different areas of life. I mean, while still being an NBA player, he just let himself be foreclosed on by the bank because he felt like he had enough expenses in his life. And when it came to his on-court play, his effort and weight issues didn't get any better when you add in the personal trauma. In 2011, Curry joined the Miami Heat, playing a minimal role during their championship-winning season. He appeared in just 14 games, but earned a ring as part of the team. Curry later played professionally in China in the American Basketball League before quietly retiring from professional basketball for good. Now, Eddie Curry has since gone on to build really strong relationships with all his children and his wife, and seems to be doing well today, and has learned to ignore the public ridicule that he receives all these years later. Now, Curry is also a weird case because even though he was putting up close to 20 a game in his prime, and I don't think that he would argue that he put himself in a position to come anywhere near his potential. For a number of reasons, Curry just really isn't remembered fondly by most people. Due to his physique and work ethic mainly more so than his production, he's become the poster child of sort of the dark ages of both the Bulls and the Knicks basketball organizations. And although 19 points and 7 rebounds is like top 5% of the NBA production, especially at the time with the lowest pace in history, I really don't see Curry being remembered for the positives rather than the negatives anytime soon. Now, you certainly can't make this video without Oliver Miller, who's basically only remembered for his weight despite having some solid moments in his NBA career. Oliver Miller made a name for himself during his college years with the Arkansas Razorbacks. At 6'9" and 280 pounds, he was undersized height-wise, at least for a center, but stood out due to his abnormal passing and surprising ability to protect the basket despite being a bit overweight. Over his 4 years in college, Miller played just 23.7 minutes per game, averaging 12.2, 6.5, and 2.5 blocks. While his stats weren't dominant, he had standout moments, such as blocking Shaq's shot to force overtime in a game against LSU. Oliver wasn't a cornerstone star by any means, but his talent seemed like a safe bet in the NBA, granted that he could keep his weight under control. In the 1992 NBA draft, Miller was selected 22nd overall by the Phoenix Suns. At this point, concerns about his weight were already circulating. He weighed around 300 pounds, which was 20 pounds over his college playing weight, but his game didn't seem too affected. In his rookie season, Miller played 19 minutes a game and averaged 5.6 points and 5 rebounds. Solid numbers for a late first-round pick, especially given that this was Charles Barkley's team on the best year of his career on an absolutely loaded Phoenix Suns roster. I'm not trying to label him anywhere near a future star in the NBA, but for a rookie to up his numbers from 5-5 in the regular season to 7-5 with 2 assists, and a huge 2.5 blocks in the postseason was really big for Phoenix. Oliver could do the little things that put contenders over the edge to a high level, and if you're not going to score 25 a game, which most guys don't, those little things are what get you paid in the NBA for a long time. Although the Suns ultimately lost to Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, Miller had proven he could contribute on the biggest stage. The following season, Miller's minutes increased, and so did his production. He averaged 9 points, 7 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks in 25.9 minutes a game. His skill set as a passer and defender made him a valuable contributor in a unique manner. Oliver was doing a pretty good job at making himself hard to replace. However, the impact he was doing off the court was completely overshadowing his production. His weight continued to rise, and troubling issues began to emerge. During this time, he faced a grape allegation, which added to the concerns surrounding him. The Suns decided they had seen enough already and parted ways with Miller after just 2 seasons. He joined the Detroit Pistons for the '95 season, while his production included a career-high 7.4 rebounds per game. His time in Detroit was short-lived. The following year, Miller signed with the Toronto Raptors, where he enjoyed the best statistical season of his career. Playing 30.6 minutes per game, he averaged 12.9 points, 7.4 rebounds, 2.9 assists, and 1.4 blocks. In some games, his performances were just remarkable, including a 35 points, 12 rebound, and 9 assist outing, and another game with 13 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, 6 steals, and 3 blocks. Despite these flashes of brilliance, Miller's weight and conditioning remained significant issues. His temper also began to surface. On December 5th, 1995, during a game against the Seattle Supersonics, Miller was ejected after arguing a non-call. In a heated moment, he threatened the referee and attempted to throw a chair onto the court, which began to really expose some serious character flaws. After his standout year in Toronto, Miller's career began to decline rapidly. He was traded to the Mavericks during the 1997 season, but his production dipped as his weight absolutely ballooned. After just 42 games, he was sent back to the Raptors, where he played another 2 seasons, but his impact was completely diminished. By the time he joined the Kings in 1998, Miller was playing limited minutes and struggling to stay in shape. When it came to Miller, what was apparent was that he felt the world owed him something. After clearly just shooting his career in the foot by getting fat as shit in a sport you really can't afford to be obese in, he chose to blame the world while being a locker room cancer and an asshole by most regards. According to Jerry Colangelo, when I talked about Oliver, I talked about personal accountability. When you make a mistake, you admit a mistake. The problem with Oliver is, he was never accountable. Miller bounced around various international leagues and minor basketball teams, where pictures would surface showcasing just how badly he let himself go. By 2003, he attempted an NBA comeback with the Minnesota Timberwolves, but his weight had reportedly ballooned to a whopping 380 pounds. Limiting to just 10.5 minutes per game, he averaged 2.5 points and 2.7 rebounds. Now, this marked the end of his NBA career. Miller clearly destroyed his career, becoming the heaviest player in history, and honestly, given his unique ability as a defender and playmaker, his ceiling was actually quite high as a player. But really, it's just kind of impressive how you managed to let your weight balloon this much, given how hard you have to work to even just play and practice in the NBA. His post-basketball life had a share of challenges. In 2011, he was sentenced to a year in prison for assault after pistol-whipping his girlfriend's brother during an argument. By 2016, Miller was working as a car dealer and was inducted into the Arkansas Sports Hall of Fame, looking much slimmer and healthier than during his playing days. While Miller's NBA career could have been much more successful, his struggles with weight and discipline defined his time in the league. Despite his immense talents, he'll always be remembered as just the fat guy, unfortunately. John Hoplite Williams entered the league with immense promise, a combination of size, skill, and athleticism that made him one of the most intriguing players in the 1980s. I mean, for a brief while, when talking about the most versatile guy in the league, this fat dude was at the top of the list. Williams was a standout at Louisiana State University, who captured the attention of scouts for his ability to play multiple positions and showcase a rare blend of ball handling and basketball IQ for someone his size. Standing at 6'8" and weighing over 250 pounds, he was rare as they come, being capable of playing both forward positions while also functioning as an oversized point forward. Now, this was a role that was becoming increasingly more important in the evolving NBA, as Bird and Magic just grabbed the league by the nuts. His rise through LSU was meteoric, highlighted by his role in leading the Tigers to the NCAA Final Four in 1986, an achievement that propelled him into the NBA's top tier of prospects. At LSU, Williams was the quintessential mismatch. His combination of strength, court vision, and passing ability for a player of his size led many to believe that he could be the next great NBA point guard forward hybrid. His skills as a big body rebounder, defender, and playmaker were second to none. With a combination of basketball intelligence and physicality, it was easy to see why he was considered one of the top prospects in the 1986 draft. The Bullets selected Williams with the 12th overall pick, hoping he would develop into a transformative player. His NBA debut was met with excitement as fans and analysts saw the potential for Williams to become the next big thing in the league. His skill set allowed him to do things that few players of his size could do. He could pass, rebound, and score in many ways that made him stand out from traditional power forwards and centers. In his rookie season, Williams showed flashes of brilliance with solid stats and the ability to play multiple roles on the floor. Despite the pressure of being a high draft pick, Williams' natural talent and promise were undeniable, and many thought his future was limitless. However, it didn't take long for the cracks to start showing. Williams' biggest challenge was his conditioning. While the NBA was filled with athletic players, Williams' weight became an issue early on in his career. At 6'8" and well over 250 pounds, he struggled with maintaining an ideal weight, and his off-court habits didn't help. His love for food had become a well-known aspect of his career, earning him the nickname Hot Plates, a clear reference to his affinity for indulging in unhealthy food, often exceeding 300 pounds while at his heaviest. His weight problem had significant repercussions on Williams' ability to play at a high level. His size, which were initially seen as an advantage, became a hindrance. His speed and agility were hampered by the extra weight, and his stamina was affected as well. What should have been a promising career began to unravel as his body failed to keep up with the demands of the NBA. Williams' struggles with conditioning became a source of frustration for both the team and himself. The Bullets had invested in a player that they believed could be a centerpiece for their franchise, but his weight issues and lack of commitment to fitness led to diminishing returns on the court. In his early years, Williams showed flashes of what he could do if he were in top shape. He could handle the ball well for his size, rebound with strength, and make plays that few could replicate. He even managed to average double-digit points and was often used as a point forward, initiating plays and running the offense. But as the seasons wore on, his inconsistencies became more pronounced, and the struggles with weight took a greater toll on his game. He couldn't keep up with the demands of the NBA schedule, and his performance freefalled. The Bullets' frustration with Williams reached a breaking point. They tried to implement weight loss programs and rehabilitative measures, but Williams was unable to make the necessary changes to his lifestyle. By 1990, the Bullets had all but given up on him. Despite being a promising player, his potential was squandered, again due to his ability to control his weights and dedicate himself to conditioning. The franchise began to move on from Williams, but they were unable to extract the value that they hoped for when they drafted him. In 1992, Williams was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers in hopes that a change of scenery might help him get his career back on track. Unfortunately, things only worsened in LA. The Clippers also struggled to manage his weights and his lack of commitment to his conditioning. His off-court issues became even more apparent, and he was eventually suspended by the team. The suspension was a clear indication that Williams had not learned from his previous mistakes, and it marked the beginning of the end of his career. Williams had one last chance at redemption when he signed with the Indiana Pacers in 1994. The Pacers hoped that they could salvage his career by giving him a minimal contract and providing him with the opportunity to get back into shape. But as with his previous stops, Williams' old habits resurfaced. His weight remained an issue, and despite some early signs of progress, he was eventually waived by the Pacers in 1995. His career had come to an end. A once promising NBA player lost to poor personal decisions and a lack of discipline. While Hot Plate's NBA career may have been short-lived and filled with missed opportunities, his story serves as a cautionary tale of unrealized potential. Robert Tractor Traylor was one of the most unique talents to ever touch a ball. As a high school athlete in Detroit, Traylor was an imposing figure from the start, standing at 6'5" and weighing nearly 350 pounds as a freshman. Despite his size, he possessed a really weird agility and a skill that set him apart. His coach Robert Smith recognized his potential and worked rigorously to improve his conditioning. Traylor joined the cross-country team and ran stadium stairs, shedding pounds and building endurance. By his senior year, he was down to 280, standing at 6'8", and was a force on the court. His dominance led him to be named Detroit's Mr. Basketball, while becoming a McDonald's All-American. He helped his team win back-to-back public league championships, establishing himself as one of the most sought-after recruits in the nation. Traylor thrived on the court. By his sophomore year in college, he was Michigan's second leading scorer and top rebounder. His junior year solidified his status as one of the best big men in college basketball, leading the Wolverines to the NCAA tournaments. However, concerns about his conditioning and weight persisted, casting doubt on his ability to transition successfully to the big leagues. The Bucks took a chance on Traylor, selecting him 6th overall in the 1998 NBA draft in a trade with the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavs used the pick acquired from Milwaukee to draft Dirk Nowitzki, a future Hall of Famer. The trade would go down as one of the most lopsided deals in NBA history. Meanwhile, Traylor struggled to meet expectations. In his rookie season, he averaged just 5 points and 3 rebounds per game, far below the standard of a top 10 pick. His weight continued to blow up, reportedly surpassing 300 pounds once again, which limited mobility and endurance. Traylor's NBA career spanned 7 seasons, with stops in Milwaukee, Cleveland, Charlotte, New Orleans, and a brief return to Cleveland. He never averaged more than 6 points per game in a year. His conditioning issues and lack of height for his position made it difficult for him to dominate at the professional level whatsoever. At just 6'8", he was undersized for a center and lacked the athleticism to adapt to other roles effectively. By By 2005, his health began to deteriorate significantly. He underwent surgery that voided his contract with the Nets after he failed a physical. This effectively ended his NBA career at the age of 27. From there, Traylor played internationally, including stints in Turkey and Puerto Rico, where he won the BSN's Defensive Player of the Year award. However, his struggles with weight and health persisted, limiting his playing time and development. In May 2011, while living and playing in Puerto Rico, Traylor tragically passed away from a heart attack. He collapsed in his apartment while on the phone with his wife, who was in the US at the time. His team officials found him unresponsive after she raised the alarm. Traylor's untimely death sent shockwaves to the basketball world, with many remembering him as a kind-hearted giant who was always willing to help others. A story that once started with a world of promise, sadly would conclude in tragedy. If you enjoyed this video, check the one I made on the tallest players in NBA history here, and I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace out.